This episode of Beyond Daditude is powered by JustCREATE, a reminder that you don't have to have perfection or permission to start creating. Let's get into it. Have you ever noticed yourself staying comfortable, even though you know that there's something that you should be doing or facing? It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't care, but because it feels safer to wait. That's what I want to talk about. This is Beyond Daditude, where reflection becomes direction. My name is Garrett, and you may hear my co-hosts that are walking around, Benji, Bougie, and Brick, my 3 dogs. So if you do hear them, say hi. In the last episode, I talked about what it felt to close one door to open another. In other words, I lost my job. This job I've had for 9 years. Well, coming up on 9 years. And I don't see it really as losing my job. I honestly see it as another door being opened. Gives me time to focus on the things I really want. This episode feels like what comes after that moment. Not the answers, but the space. I don't think comfort is the enemy. I actually think comfort is necessary in a lot of cases. We all need moments where we can come down from the noise. Take a breath. And be steady again. Comfort helps us regulate. It helps us recover. Especially after things that feel heavy or emotional or uncertain. Without it, we really burn out. In this episode, I am not trying to guide or say that I know the next steps or I'm confident that this is what should be done. I'm only talking in reflection to what I am finding and what I have found in my life. Comfort has a role, and recovery matters. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. I've learned that there is a point where comfort quietly shifts roles. Instead of restoring us, it starts protecting us. Not from danger, but from discomfort we don't yet know how to sit with. To give you an idea, there was this time in which I would talk to an individual, try to get this individual moving to take this step forward by themselves. The reply that I would receive would always be about the same, in some way, shape, or form. One being, man, I'm tired. I just want to take a little nap. It sounds reasonable, but underneath, it wasn't restoration. It's actually avoidance. Avoidance from doing what we know, what we should be doing. So that's what I mean when I say comfort stops restoring us and starts protecting us. And when that happens, comfort doesn't feel bad or wrong. It feels familiar. It feels safe, easy to justify, right? But if you think about it, that's when comfort becomes avoidance. So what does avoidance look like? What does it actually look like? Avoidance doesn't usually look like giving up. It doesn't show up dramatically or obviously. Most of the time, it looks pretty reasonable, reflective, small, understandable. It looks like waiting until you have more clarity. It looks like planning instead of starting. It looks like telling yourself you'll move forward once things feel calmer, more certain, or more figured out. Sometimes that is rest, sometimes it's not. The difference is the honesty behind it. But sometimes it's just a way to avoid feeling what's underneath the moment, the uncertainty, the fear, the discomfort of not knowing what comes next. Over the years, I have noticed that when people are faced with an uncomfortable situation, they tend to respond in a few predictable ways. Imagine yourself at the office. You have 5 different deadlines, 5 different things that need to be completed, and they all need to be completed within a certain amount of time. So imagine yourself at your work, your job, getting ready for the day, your family. As we go through these, put yourself in that moment and let's see if we can pinpoint what's actually going on. So, those 3 predictable responses. The first one is the freeze. Sometimes I call it being paralyzed. Some people that are put in those situations freeze. They don't stop because they don't care. They stop because the situation feels unsafe, heavy, or unclear. They're unsure where and how to even start, which ultimately becomes a struggle as those times pass and those deadlines get closer. So everything is choked up and freezes. Another response is what I call overdrive. They go straight into an overdrive state. They stay busy and they stay moving. And they fill every gap with action. Without intention, that constant motion doesn't create progress. It just creates noise. And when we look at that, you start to realize that busy does not equal progress. Without intention, constant motion doesn't create progress. It just creates noise. The third response is the one I've been trying to choose more intentionally: the deep dive. In some ways, I call this the pause with a purpose. This isn't freezing. It isn't rushing into the battlefield with no plan. It's pausing with purpose. It's thinking about where you're actually trying to go. Not what feels urgent, but what truly matters. One example where this can be used is in conversation. I'm not talking about any normal conversation. I'm talking about the conversation of maybe a job interview or a meeting with a high executive. Pausing with purpose. When we talk to our friends, we use many filler words, but, uh, like if you understand, if you do this, then I think we can do that. But what that creates, even though movement is not progress, busy is not progress, even though I am putting what filler words are in there, the person listening to it sees it as you don't know what you're talking about. And you may well know what you're talking about. So the pause with purpose is to take a breath and you purposely wait to formulate that plan, not for perfection, but you wait because that pause is the difference between a filler word and knowing what you're talking about. Do you have those reports that I asked? Or do you have those reports that I asked? See the difference? Pausing with purpose. It's slower than overdrive, more demanding than freezing, and it's uncomfortable in a different way. But it's also where clarity begins to show up. What I've realized is that comfort often pulls us away from the third option. Avoidance isn't always about avoiding action. Sometimes it's about avoiding stillness. You have to be comfortable with that silence in order to pause with intention. You're avoiding the uncomfortableness of the silence. Other ways that we can pertain to our lives is scrolling versus listening inward, planning versus starting, staying busy versus being honest. What helps isn't forcing myself to push harder or power through. What helps is stopping long enough to ask a better question. Not, what should I do? But, is this helping me recover? Or is this helping me avoid something I already know I need to be doing or need to face? There's no judgment, no rushing. Awareness brings those choices back. So let's reframe that comfort. When comfort is actually helping me recover, I come back clearer, calmer, and more grounded. When comfort is helping me avoid, I come back unchanged, and the thing I'm avoiding is still going to be there. The goal isn't to eliminate comfort from my life. The goal is to notice when comfort is stopping me from restoring and starts numbing. A breath instead of a scroll. A short walk instead of more noise. One honest sentence instead of waiting for the perfect one. Avoidance doesn't mean you're broken. Most of the time, it means something inside you wants care and courage at the same time. Comfort doesn't turn into avoidance overnight. It happens slowly, quietly, almost politely. Episode 1 was about closing a door. This episode is about what happens when we don't rush and force ourselves into the next door. You don't need to remove comfort from your life. You just need to notice when it's protecting you from growth you're actually ready for. This is Beyond Daditude. Thanks for being here. I love you all. Thanks for listening to Beyond Daditude. This is more than a podcast. It's a reminder that you're not alone in the chaos. Keep showing up, keep creating, and keep living your story. Until next time.